So, my guest today is a well respected photojournalist. He covers a wide variety of music genres. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts virtual studio, Mr. Peter Dervin. Peter.
Hey there, Mark.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great, hanging in there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's so good to see you again and chat with you. And yeah, it makes me feel good to see a familiar face.
Well, good. I appreciate you inviting me, and yeah, it's been we've known each other a few years now, bumping into each other at shows, eclectic shows at that. I mean, we seem to run it. We have very cool taste in both music and dance and all that kind of stuff. So it's always nice to see you out there in the venues and here.
Yeah, the feeling's mutual. It's very much so. And we're like, one of the North End media members.
Yep. There's a few of us.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, and one thing that's been really nice about doing these interviews with local talent is that I've been finding out all kinds of new things that I didn't know about people. And especially like what we do, being photojournalists, that sometimes we're at shows, you're talking about what you just shot, what's coming up. But in terms of like someone's background or things that they've done, I don't know a lot about that kind of thing. So we're going to get a chance to get into some of that today. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, great. Well, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So I was trying to think back when I was getting ready for this interview that I believe one of the first images of yours that I saw that just blew me away was the shot from the U2 Joshua Tree tour at CenturyLink. That was like the full back of the stadium kind of shot. So can we kind of just actually start with that show, and then we'll kind of get into your photography background. But what was it like shooting U2? Because I've never shot them before, and were there restrictions? There was a release, all that kind of thing. And how did you get that particular shot?
Well, it was kind of interesting that how that all came together. I actually stadium shows because it's just my set of lenses are only good. They're really good for more intimate setups. And, because with stadium shows, you just don't know what you're going to get, right? You don't know how high the stage is. You don't know how far you're going to be and all that kind of stuff. So I never put in for that U2 show. And about 3 hours before the show was going to happen, I get a frantic email saying, "Hey, can you cover the U2 show?" And it's like, sure. Okay. So I raced down, I get my stuff together, raced down, they got my name switched out. And again, it was a whole process because it was at CenturyLink. You go through one door here and you got to wait there. And it was only going to be, we were only going to be allowed to shoot the 4th, 5th, and 6th song of the set. And we're only going to shoot from the soundboard, right? So it's like, okay, great. Now, again, I still have just the lenses I have, right? And, and there was only about a dozen of us. And they grouped us, so they brought us in, they escorted us in, and we got to the front of the soundboard, and there's a platform, not a big platform. And so I'm standing there, I get myself at the end, and I'm standing, there's a famed photographer, Kevin Mazer, and he shoots, like he just shot the thing that Rihanna did with her lingerie line, right? He's like the photographer for the stars. And I realize I'm standing like right next to him. It's like, hey, we're like Facebook buddies. And so I'm sitting there, and he's got his monster lens, right? He's got his monster lens, and the other folks here, they got their monster lenses and their rentals and their 400s and their 700s, and I got my 70 to 200. And so I thought, I stood there at the moment seeing this stage, right? And seeing what was presenting itself, right? And I thought to myself, I'm going to pull back. I want to get this shot of the expansiveness of this, of what it was like to be in that crowd and having it be as big as it was. And so I switched it back down to my 14 to 24, my wide angle, thinking, okay, I'm going to shoot this differently. And so again, I took a series of shots that way. And again, that red one, just, it's amazing how it captured the whole essence of the stadium. And, it's not so much about the band. It was so much about the experience. And so yeah, it's pretty neat. I don't know whether you notice or not, but a couple of the people that are like standing right in front of me are Duff McKagan and Mike McCready talking to each other. They're like right in the middle of the picture.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, if you kind of look like if it's 10 feet out or 15 feet out, you'll see, oh yeah, that's their silhouettes, and they're talking to each other. So that's kind of neat. And but I liked how I was able to get from side to side of the stadium, the structure of the stadium. Like I was like how the height was. So yeah, it was a pretty neat show. And then after we shot our shots, they made us put our gear away. I had a reviewer ticket. I got to go see the rest of the show, and it was quite the experience. And I've caught now I've now seen U2 twice, when they did the other one when they had the big huge spider thing.
Oh, yeah.
But like that show, I didn't put in to shoot that show. I went as a fan and just wanted to catch it because again, big shows, they're the hustle and bustle of getting in, shooting your shot, and then either getting tossed out or whatever. It's just, if I'm going to go, I like going for the whole show. And if I ever get the opportunity, I like to shoot the whole show, when I have more freedom to be able to cruise around a venue or, the performance and be able to get different angles and so forth. So, but it was a neat experience. It was a neat show. And I ended up doing that for Northwest Music Scene. So I actually did a review for it as well and submitted that. I think you could still find it online. I mean, now that it's a few years out. Ironically, that picture then got grabbed by, and again, you know this and I know this. I mean, half these people don't contact us if they ever want to use our stuff or whatever. I ended up finding the pictures in 2 Argentinian website publications. It's like, how'd you guys get that? They grabbed it from somewhere, and next thing you know, I'm like international. So anyway, but that's a neat shot. Actually, I'm going to probably blow up that shot at one point in time and hang it in my house because I just love how the whole thing, looks.
Yeah, no, I remember several things that you just mentioned about that because I was there as a fan. I was right in the front by the rail the whole show.
Yeah.
And so I remember when I saw that, I think that's what I loved about it because it did capture the experience that I had because but from the whole back part of it, since I was crushed up against the rail, it was kind of like I didn't get to see, that whole expansiveness. And
right.
That's what I loved about it. It's like, I can relive what everyone else saw from that angle, from that shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also remember that part about when some other folks picked up on that picture and using it without authorization because I was one of the people that wrote them about that. I remember kind of getting, I think there was like a group of us that kind of got on them about that. And then they kind of came back, I think, and maybe at least acknowledged, put the photo credit or something because initially they weren't doing any of that. And that's a huge no-no. But yeah, you're right. In the digital age, people are swiping stuff left and right that you will never know about unless it happens to come across your purview somehow.
Yeah, yeah, and people aren't very good at wanting to be reciprocal on payment. I mean, it's like if you even ask, it doesn't happen. I mean, everybody, if it gets out there, it's out there. So it's just, the protections there really aren't any, and again, none of us have the resources to be able to want to go to court and fight the darn thing. Somebody told me once that be glad that you're out there. I guess, I mean, sometimes, you may have something that's great and it won't get out there. So anyway, it's great though. I mean, yeah, great series of shots, great show. And that was fun.
Yeah. So when did you start doing the concert photography part? How many years ago was that?
Well, I've always, since I was a young kid, I always liked photography. My grandmother got me the Time Life photography books, the thick, series and stuff. So I had those as a kid, and so I got a camera when I was maybe 17 or 18, whatever. My grandmother gave me an Olympus film camera and so forth, and I had that. And the first real show that I snuck my camera into, where I got something good out of it, was actually in 1980. I photographed the Grateful Dead up in Anchorage, Alaska, when I was working up there that year, and they came to town. This is the only time they played Alaska, and they did 3 dates at the high school auditorium. And I snuck my camera in, took some photos, and and that was it. Made some 3x5s for me, and so then life happens. You get married, have kids, and every time I went to shows, I'd maybe take my camera, but it was more as a hobbyist type thing. And we moved up here in the Northwest in '89 from Los Angeles, and I was also big on radio. I was a radio guy. I loved listening to the radio. I was did some in used to hang out at K Rock down in Los Angeles, which was the big, became bigger than life. When I went to it, it was still a little tiny radio station on top of the cleaners, and they were still somewhat underground. But so when I came up here in the Northwest, I found out about a radio station. I actually did radio for 18 years at KSER. And again, in between that, I'd go to concerts, I'd go to festivals, I'd bring my camera, I'd, get my point and shoot, and, get to the front of the line and shoot, or, front of the rail and shoot stuff. And so I've been shooting, constantly over the years. But in 2009, what happened is I gave up the radio gig, and 2010, I ended up getting contacted by the archivist for the Grateful Dead, and he saw my photos, and he said, "Hey, we're doing a CD project, and we'd like to use your photos for the CD project." It's like, what? So it was like, wow, this is cool. So I sent off the photos. They scanned them and did high res digital, and the photos appeared in one of the Road Trips CDs back in 2010. And they selected 4 photos, and one of them is the Jerry photo that I included in that series of the PowerPoint. And so that I said to myself, I should really start looking at doing this again. And so a fellow I know, Ed Beeson, Ed I've known off and on over the years through the radio years. So Ed used to be the talent buyer and main guy at the Backstage that was in Ballard. And he booked all these eclectic acts that came through the Backstage. And so Ed and I had reconnected and this and that. And I had told him that, told him the Jerry, the story with the Grateful Dead and this. And he said, well, I'm doing this little festival up in Stanwood. And why don't you be our festival photographer? Sure. So I went and did that. And then next thing, Ed went over to Benaroya Hall and started doing the Live at Benaroya. He was booking the talent for that, and he asked me to participate in that, and I jumped on that. And so that was kind of the springboard to get me back into my concert photography. And then, obviously I aligned myself with some local publications. So I aligned myself with the Northwest Music Scene and Glenn over there. And so I was picking shows that the other folks weren't picking. And, I've done a little stuff with Backbeat Seattle and Mike, my interests are eclectic, and eventually I've moved over to No Depression, which is that started actually in Ballard 20 plus years ago as a print publication, and it used to be a monthly. And then over the course of time, things went digital and this and that got sold. But No Depression has always been a roots Americana journal, and it allows me to go across the board, everything from rock to folk to country to blues to jazz. It's all types of. It's very, very broad, and so it's allowed me to have the ability to do those artists. And then obviously with my volunteerism at KSER for 18 years with the radio, I've always felt that it's important to give back that way, to participate that way. So that's why I do the Live at Benaroya Hall. I'm a volunteer. I'm their volunteer house photographer for the Live at Benaroya Hall series. And then I also, offered my services to Edmond Center for the Arts, which, believe it or not, I think I've been doing it for 5 years. I'm their volunteer house photographer. So it's, I enjoy doing it. It allows me to go see shows. It allows me to see a lot of different things. And again, the real excitement is being able to, photograph and catch these artists and musicians and performers in what they do.
Yeah, no, that's I loved hearing that backstory because I only knew pieces of it.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was doing some homework, I didn't know about your radio background at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So were you on Air Talent then?
Yeah. Yeah. I had a show. When the station went on the air in 1991. I had a show called Exposure, and it was based on the Robert Fripp album Exposure, which was very eclectic for the time in 1980s, 1979, 80. And so, at that particular time when I started the show, I was very much into Robert Fripp and King Crimson and Brian Eno and progressive musics and that kind of stuff. But the show also allowed me to become very, you know, I could go any direction I wanted. And back in 91, it first started, I was always on late at night, and we'd have to go in during the day and record our shows on reel to reels. So all our shows were recorded on reel to reels, and then somebody would stay at the station and play the thing at night, in the middle of the night. And so that's how the first live experience incarnation happened. And then I was able to, my schedule allowed me to do it on air. And so yeah, I was at KSR doing Exposure for a long time, and then it kind of morphed. Then it morphed into where I wanted to do a Grateful Dead type show, and that's so the last couple of years I was there. I had a show called One More Saturday Night that was on Saturday night, and basically featured music of the Grateful Dead, but then it veered off to the Americana realm. So I did everything from Dave Alvin and Los Lobos and Steve Earle and Emmylou Harris, and so I'd start this way and then go end up that way. So, but anyway, no, it was a great run at KSER. KSER is still at it. They're still doing it to it. I think they're having some challenges lately just because I don't think people can go in and do live broadcasting. So I know a couple colleagues that they've been playing a lot of archival shows and things like that. So it's been interesting. I tuned in last night, and they were broadcasting a show out of Louisville, Kentucky, which I thought was okay. This is interesting. So yeah. So no, I had a great run, and I used to do a bunch of other things at KSCR. I produced a couple of the benefit concerts, a couple with the California Guitar Trio. They did one at Everett High School at the Municipal Auditorium, and then we also did one at the historic Everett Theater as well, way back in the day. So yeah, it's I've had my fingers in a bunch of little things when it comes to that stuff.
Very cool. Very cool. You, like you mentioned earlier, you put a PowerPoint together presentation of some of your favorite pictures and photos. So if the folks down in LA and Alice Land, if you could run that video of Peter's photos right now, that would be awesome, please. All right, everybody. So that was some amazing photo imagery from Peter. And as I mentioned to Peter during that, there is the U2 shot that I was talking about earlier, and Bo Diddley and Grateful Dead, and just this whole array of amazing, amazing photos. And one thing too, Peter, that I want to talk to you about in the 8 minutes that we have left is that you've shot a lot of festivals, and like you said, you got a chance to do the one in Stanwood way back when. It kind of got you back into the concert photography realm. What's it been like shooting all these different festivals around around the country, really?
Well, it's pretty neat. What's really neat, because I go to the same ones, every year for whatever reason, and you run into other photographers who you see once a year, right? Unless they're here locally. But you build kind of a community. You get to know some of the fans as well that go to all the shows, and you see that. Like when I go to Hardly Strictly, there are people that have gone to that festival every year. They park their butts in the same place, and every year you get to see them again. So that's really nice. Yeah, it's just it's a neat experience. I've been fortunate to shoot Hardly Strictly, which is. Do you know about Hardly Strictly at all?
I don't.
So Hardly Strictly Bluegrass is a festival that started 20 years ago. This year would have been its 20th year. And it's a free festival in San Francisco in Golden Gate Park. And the fellow that started it was a fellow by the name of Warren Hellman, who historically, generations ago, his ancestors started Wells Fargo. So anyway, it's just the guy loved bluegrass music, and he started in 2001 as a free festival with one stage. He had Emmylou Harris and a woman by the name of Hazel Dickens, and they had 8 bands. Well, then the next year they did it again, and more people came. And then as they then got some talent buyers, they started bringing in other types of music, and so that's where they added the Hardly to it, because it wasn't just strictly bluegrass anymore. It was now Hardly Strictly. So the thing blossomed, and I heard about it probably in its 8th year, and I thought, man, this thing has all these artists that I just love. And so by year 10, I finally went, and I went every year up to, I didn't go in 18 because we went to the Seahawks game, and so went to London. It was the same time, but then went back 19. And again, I mean, you see break art out, you see artists that are up and coming. Adia Victoria is one I really like a lot. Margot Price played there. But then you had Tanya Tucker, who, is having a resurgence in her career and won a Grammy for her album and stuff. And so there she was on the stage. And so it's a great festival. And then regionally, I do the Winthrop Rhythm and Blues Festival. And same thing, I'm part of their team there. And in fact, I'll make this plug and pitch. They were just awarded a whole bunch of awards from the Washington Festivals and Events Association. And the Washington Festivals and Events Association is all the events by public and private entities that put on festivals throughout the state of Washington. And they have an annual conference and an annual awards program. And so Erica Olson's the talent buyer for that and involved with that. And she submitted my photo, a photo I took of the Dusty 45s, the local band. And that won Best Photo. It was the second year in a row that I won Best Photo at this convention, at this awards. So that was pretty neat. That just happened just 2 days ago. So that was pretty cool. So that's what's neat about the festivals. You get to reconnect with people and see a lot of great talent and reconnect with folks who you enjoy being around.
Wow! Well, congratulations on winning the photo award. A couple of days ago. That's
It's kind of a surprise. It's a surprise because I don't know about it until it happens or after it happens.
Well, it's always nice, obviously, when your work gets acknowledged, especially in that way. Right. There's all these other photos, I'm sure, that were submitted, and then yours got picked for the second time. It's like, man.
I know. It's kind of gives me goosebumps.
Well, I know we have some people that are hardcore Alice fans that are also budding photographers, and we have some other people that will probably be watching this down the road that are same thing, especially once we get past COVID and the pandemic. What kind of advice would you give someone who's trying to start off and do what you do?
Well, a big part of it is building your network. Getting in. Find a medium that you like in doing it. Like, again, you know, a lot of you, as you know, we have, in order to do the music photography, we have to get access. And to get that access, you got to build relationships, and you got to build community, and you got to show that your work is, good work. And so if that's the direction you want to go, you got to work it. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, nor is it going to give you a financial reward. I mean, don't go in it because you think you're going to make tons of money being a photographer in that realm. Be prepared to the fact that, when you do go do it, save your pennies that you do save, because, the gear is not cheap to have quality gear. So, think about it, just like any business or anything that you're going to do, develop a business plan. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but, put a plan into place if this is a vocation you want to pursue. Because again, it's a neat thing. For me, I'm fortunate to be able to do it, at this stage of my career. I mean, I'm older and not young, I didn't jump into it as a youngster. I mean, I was doing it, but I raised a family and all that good stuff. So again, so somebody who's looking to get into it, do your homework, find the right vehicle for yourself. Whatever publication or whatever web page or whatever blog, find the right vehicle that's going to pursue your interests, and then just pursue it and be diligent. Don't expect it to take off like a rocket. I mean, it might, but just work your craft.
Very sound advice. Yeah. And for me being, I still consider myself one of the newer folks around here locally, that it's very much about building those relationships and honoring your commitments and, following your deadlines and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And basically not being a jerk when you're in person with people. And it doesn't have to be your fellow media people. It could be the person at the ticket booth. It could be, an usher or somebody. It just kind of gets around that, oh yeah, he's a good guy or good gal, or no, that's that person that I had a problem with last time. And it's like, well, then they're not going to deal with you. They'll deal with all these other people that they don't have to worry about. So,
right.
Peter, thank you so much for taking the time. It went by super quick.
It did go fast.
Yeah. Again, it was so good seeing you and talking with you and learning more about you. And hopefully I get a chance to see you again, hopefully sooner than later, once we're past all this pandemic stuff that's going on.
Mark, thanks for asking me to be a part of this. It's fantastic. It's great to see you as well. We'll be out there soon enough, hopefully. We'll keep our fingers crossed. So thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Stay safe and have a good rest of your Sunday.
All right. Thank you. See ya.
Bye.